and myself, we are founders, co-founders of startup called Flash. And what we actually do, we try to figure out how to provide cross-border payments, risk assessment, credit limit management for customers from US who are willing to buy from other countries, from cross-border, from Europe specifically. Uh, that's an idea we're working on right now. Before we tried few ideas, few hypotheses inside US market. We did like payments, B2B payments. We did installments and buy now, pay later. Um, for example, something similar to uh, get balance. We looked at APs, ARs, something similar to Resolve, Plastic, or uh, Melio. So that was our one of key references.
Hmm.
But at certain point, we did like 70, 80 discovery interviews and came up to the problem of some specific market segment, that there is a problem when the transaction takes place between countries on cross border. That's why right now we are focusing on this issue, but still we're super interested in overall, expertise. And now we are looking for any option to talk to market players, to talk to experts who are working on B2B payments, finance management, to recognize frictions in B2B. That's why we actually approached to you, and very happy to have me here today. Um, we're early stage. We're not selling anything. We're not having, you know, uh, product yet. We are looking for some that specific problem to solve. So that's what we do. Uh, Let me then, if you have any questions, please go on. Otherwise, I will just jump on my specific questions.
Yeah, no, totally. Thanks for the background, Alex. Really appreciate it. So, I know you said that the product is not ready yet in the market and not selling. Do you, just curious, just for my awareness, uh, any time frame that you guys are looking at to launch in this year or next year, or what's sort of the stage you are in? Or it may not be all, because you mentioned a couple different products, right? Including installments, buy now pay later, short-term funding for B2B. So you're planning to launch all at once, or kind of like go in the what's your go-to-market plan strategy? Just curious.
Yeah. So the game plan is to find out the one single problem we believe in. We see that the market has that specific problem, and we can actually focus on that. And the engineering part, the financial part, the legal part is covered very well. Dmitry already built similar project, similar startup in Africa market and didn't exit. So
Mhm.
he has like strong financial and actually product and building competence. And yeah, so the issue is just to find the pain point. Uh,
Right.
why we switching from one to another is the reason is that we just didn't see the approval that there is a friction, and there is something we can do what others didn't do yet. I mean,
Mhm.
yeah, that's uh, where we are. um, Let me maybe jump into questions, and you know I also will provide some specific details uh,
Yeah. Yeah. Certainly.
during this conversation.
Yeah.
Well, just to figure out the main uh, topic, I just want to understand if we going to discuss on cross-border issues, or we just focus on you know uh, B2B transactions across US. Did you have some experience on transaction management, payment management, maybe credit limit management on cross-border trade, B2B trade. Did you have such experience before so that we can focus on it, or it's more like inside US?
So, I mean, fire off your questions. Obviously, you said transaction management, payment management, and what was the third one?
Credit limit management, terms
Credit
management.
limit management.
Yep.
Okay. So yeah, I mean, I certainly have some exposure to cross-border, right? Primarily, my experience has been in domestic U.S. market. Um, in terms of the cross-border, it's certainly looking at plastic, for example, right? So the plastic would do mostly wires when it comes to cross-border. We didn't. I mean, we had the short-term financing um, options for B2B, but in the U.S. market, right? So that was in the cross-border making the payments. Um, However, with that said, I work with in companies like prior to even plastic at Visa, where I spent 9 years. Work with lots of different players in many different markets when it comes to cross-border transactions. So I have a pretty good experience and expertise in the cross-border transactions. Um, from my Visa time, right? I mean, working with um, also Visa has a product called B2B Connect. So I don't know if you guys know, which essentially enabling buyers and suppliers. So very very similar to Mastercard Track. So there are a couple of different products that are out there. Mastercard Track. Um, that's one hand they have it. And Visa has called B2B Connect. Mastercard Connect actually is focused on both domestic and cross-border. Visa is primarily focused on cross-border when it comes to the B2B Connect, really enabling these cross-border transactions in the US and outside of the US, right? All B2B transactions, obviously. And if you look at the Mastercard Track, on the other hand, um, obviously they got domestic and cross-border. So they and their business model, obviously, and you can certainly look it up, but the cross-border, the business model is connecting. So the Mastercard doesn't have like direct to merchant relationship, right? So they work with aggregators. So for example, you got BPAs and SPAs. BPAs being buyer payment agent and SPAs being the supplier payment agent, right? So the BPAs being of the world in the US market, like Copa Pay, um, and then SPA is on the other hand supplier being like an Avid exchange, right? So you got the both the buyer and the supplier aggregators or the agents, right? So they have the relationship with the buyers, and on the other hand, the supplier agents have the relationship with the suppliers. But the payments actually do flow through Mastercard Track platform, right? That actually does include like things like virtual card payments. Um, Obviously, the regular account to account payment. Um, um, Also, I don't know if the Mastercard actually has. I can also look it up because at least at the time they didn't have the credits, right? So you could do account to account. They had RTP. Um, they had obviously the virtual card payments and things of those nature. So yeah, I mean that's kind of like my experience has been when it comes to cross-border, these platforms or the wires, which is you could do send in USD or you could send in local currencies. Um, when
Yes.
it comes to the cross-border, also I have the company working with Solid most recently, right? So we credit card transactions, right? I mean you could US issued card, but you are free to spend anywhere, right? International. So that's spending on overseas, FX and the your currency exchange and ISA fees and all of that, these networks actually do charge, right, on these cross-border overseas credit card transactions. So very familiar with that space, right? Because I've done it
Yeah,
solid.
that's
Yeah,
super solid and super impressive. I'm just asking so that I can, choose either to focus on US only or cross borders. So it's
yeah.
100%, super solid experience on cross borders. So let me give just specific idea on what problem we are about to solve.
Hmm.
And well, today it's not like uh, discovery call because you're not a part of transaction, but you are like expert who has helicopter you on the market. So the request from us is just to criticize what we underestimate, maybe what kind of risks they might uh, be, what we don't w- we are potentially skipping, or maybe give just feedback on what the potential pitfalls you see in the problem space we're trying to tackle with. So we found out that there is a customer segment, uh, uh, customers in United States who want to buy products from Europe.
Hmm.
Why they want to buy it from Europe? Just because they don't have such products inside the market. They go outside. China is kind of blocked due to some trade war issues, and uh, the idea is that Europe is kind of uh, hub where U.S. customers want to buy. And we have a bunch of such companies who actually buy like over 60% of their merchandise from Europe. So half Europe, half US. Um, the market segment is basically Amazon sellers, mm, and some other types, 30, 50 million GMB per year. That's our like target segment. So what they say, uh, we used to buy inside the US, we used to have credit limits. We used to have net 30, net 40 terms. Uh, but when it comes to Europe, no chance to get any terms, no chance to get any credit limits, just down payments, 100% prepayments, and it it, uh, it doesn't really work. Then, since they have low margin, high turnover, and they need to have any terms to cover you know their uh, cash flow. Well, um, they are ready to pay for if they had a chance to get same terms as they used to have in US, they can pay for that service, and that's opportunity we see here. So we assume that if we create such service that can assess risk from customer side and cover this risk from supplier side and actually provide terms from Europe side by maybe including some uh, credit insurance company, maybe opening legal entity or whatever else, we can earn from three uh, revenue streams: service commission, discounts from supplier, and just foreign exchange, maybe some logistics services. Um, that could be like 10, 15, 20% out of gross merchandise value, uh, gross turnover. So what we have, just to sum up, we have kind of starving crowd of customers from US who are ready to buy if we make it possible, and we have a bunch of suppliers in Europe who just don't want to provide such terms for some reason didn't have enough interviews with such suppliers yet. That's why we don't know the reasons behind it yet. So the first question of mine would be, uh, on your experience, what the main pitfalls uh, you might see when it comes to cross-border transactions, maybe in terms of legal issues, regulations, taxation, anything else like payment methods, foreign exchange issues. Uh, yeah, could you please share your just helicopter view and experience where the pitfalls might be?
Yeah, I mean, the great question, and I think good problem to solve. So I think in my experience, when it comes to cross-border transactions, and if you look at the credit in general, right? So and I think let's divide it into two segments. The one is um, traditional credit cards, and the another one, which I know are you guys focused on credit cards or just mostly lending, which is B2B or buy now pay later.
Well, right now the idea is the customer side can pay anyway. Uh,
Hmm.
wire transfer, bank transfers, credit card,
Similar to
anything
plastic
else.
setup, similar to plastic manual setup.
Yeah. So any payment methods is okay from customer side.
Right.
And the main issue is to provide those customers same terms for cross-border as they used to have inside the US.
Right. Yeah. So you do offer or plan to offer that that a buyer can pay with the credit card and the supplier gets the funds in their bank account through ACH or the buyer, right?
That could be an option. I mean, the issue not even in payment method. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
uh, the issue is in terms negotiation.
Right.
So if
Yeah.
the terms are
Right.
negotiated, any payment method is okay. But the problem is
Right.
that it's kind of hard to negotiate. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I mean, look at the one thing is if I look at the economics of scale and the terms, right? So from my experience at Plastic, I think the terms really did work better in U.S. market than it did in the Europe market when it comes to the credit terms. So, for example, let's say there is a salon owner who wants to pay to the supplier in Europe, or let's say play it in two parts in US, right?
Yep.
US supplier for the wholesale supplies, then this salon owner can actually pay with their if they don't have the funds in the account in the bank, they can pay with the credit card, right? Let's say if you have a credit card with Visa, Mastercard, Amex is also pretty high in terms of the interchange, and the fee doesn't really work in the favor of the merchants. But let's say the Visa or Mastercard, then in this case, you pay with your business card, right? Where you have the funds sitting, then the economics perspective obviously is, I
Привет.
mean, you're
Ну,
paying
отвлеки, но
a
я
fee
разговариваю.
um, because and then you're paying to the supplier who does not accept the card payments, right? So let's say then you disperse the funds with the ACH bank transfer. Then in this case you pay the 2.95% or 2.9% or 3%,
Просто
whatever the
занят.
fee would be, right? Along with your um, transaction amount. And in this case, let's say if you had um, so So I think that the one thing is, and I think I worked on two different models, right? So the one is direct to merchant. In this case, the salon and spa, paying the merchant. So I think the economics are better for sure with platform like yours or plastic. But if you do work with the another solutions that I had built is embedded payments, right? So which is really enabling accounts payable, accounts receivable, fintech platforms to build these embedded payments capabilities for B2B or um, you know C2B sort of use cases, right?
Hmm.
Through their platforms. Then in this case, there are different economics because then you have to give that. But if you're working directly with merchants, then you don't have to give any rev share, right? So yeah, I mean, I think as you know, in the U.S. market, I think Visa network, these interchange fee depends upon the card, depends upon the variety of different things really plays out there. But the blended rate in my, I think it's about like 2%, somewhere around 1.9 to 2%, right, on a credit card.
Mhm.
And if you're charging 2.9%, um, then there is a significant margin there, right? Um,
Well, the let me ask some specific questions concerning plastic. Uh,
yeah.
I mean, even credit card payments, um, payments. So, is that correct that plastic provided payment method when you pay by, credit card and the customer, I mean, supplier receives bank account transfer, right?
Right, right.
What was the reason why some customers prefer to pay by credit card? What was the
Yeah,
benefit?
right, right. So, well, I mean, if you look at the high interest rates environment, right?
Exchange rate.
Um, yeah. So I think maybe what happened is, um, you know, plastic was kind of like in the sweet spot right after the pandemic, right? So when
Okay.
a lot of these businesses were on the verge of closing out, couldn't sustain their operations, and there was not much of a lending. The banks were being very stringent about giving these SBA loans, right?
Okay.
Um, then in this case, what you do, I mean, in order for you to sustain your operations, you got two options: either you got the funds in the bank, right, to pay or if you have some instruments of the loan, then you can actually take the loan, and getting the loans were not easy.
Okay.
Even in today's environment, you could get the loan, but the interest rates are going to be pretty high, right? I
Okay.
mean, B2B or like 13, 14%. You think about the BNPO, it could go 20, 25%, right? For the consumer. So interest rates being pretty high, or you don't have access to the capital, right? In then, but you have the funds sitting in your card, which you already have an approved from your business card, from Visa or Mastercard or Chase or whatever the card you have, a City card. And you have to pay your bills, your invoice, your utility bills to the suppliers. Then you can actually pay with the card,
I
obviously with
see.
the fee, obviously with the fee. But right? Because all of these banks will give you up to 30 to 45 days float to pay back with no interest on a credit card,
45,
right?
right?
I mean, if you're
But
late on the card, then yeah,
uh
30 depends upon when you make the transaction and that billing cycle, right?
I
Um,
see. And the interest, how much it would be in this case?
just one second, let me change my internet connection. So I think it's
Well, six.
it should be better now.
Okay. What's
Um,
the interest in this case when I pay by credit card? The other part receives, bank transfer, and I have
mhm,
45 days grace period inside the US. How much
right.
would what the interest for this transaction would be?
Yeah. So see, the interest for the good part for the buyer, it's a zero cost to the seller, right? Because you're dispersing the funds, let's say, in their bank account. So it's a no cost to the seller. Um, but there is, let's say, 3% to the buyer, right? So the
3% to the
buyer
buyer.
pays 3% to the buyer, or 2.95, let's say 3% for the sake of this conversation. Now, but with that 3%, these buyers actually do make up with the cashback and the points, because a lot of the times these banks actually do provide you the cashback, 1.5 to 2% cashback, right?
I see.
So you earn that cashback to make up for your fee, and you get early pay discounts. The things that you mentioned, to pay with any sort of a credit instrument, whether it's card, whether it's net terms, or whether it's installment payments. So you actually do earn. early pay discounts, let's say half a point early pay discounts from the sellers, right? Because you're paying on time. And you can even have better negotiated rates, right? Because if you're paying upfront from these sellers, so you actually make up for that. Plus, plus you can write as an expense because now all these fees that you're paying when you file your taxes with the government, with IRS, these becomes your expense. So
I see.
you end up pretty much offsetting all of your fees that you're paying upfront
I,
by these fees.
absolutely.
And
I mean,
you get the free credit for 30, 45 days.
yeah. So it's absolutely makes sense. So coming back to our case, uh, did plastic, maybe discover option to provide same service as they used to provide inside the US or cross border, or let's say uh, paying
Yes,
same
we
way
did.
by
We
plastic?
did. So you could
So
actually pay, you could pay the supplier in China, all right, with this
in
instrument.
China, in Europe, anyway.
In Europe, anywhere, anywhere. So we had all of these customers. So not just the US, the buyers are in US,
Okay.
but the suppliers can be anywhere.
Yeah.
Outside. Obviously, you don't have the suppliers in countries which are sanctioned OFAC, right? Like in Russia or Ukraine or these countries. As long as you are outside of OFAC, you
And
can, yeah.
the interest would be same and grace period would be same.
Yeah, because it's a card which is issued or the credit is provided by the bank in US, right? The buyer is in US.
Hmm.
The fees to the buyers are going to be the exact same. And what you do, well, I mean, it really depends how you are doing this. So if you're sending the funds the to the supplier overseas, right? Let's say China or Europe or anywhere, then how do you send these funds to the suppliers? Are you sending through USD wire, right? Or are you doing sort of a global ACH? But if you're sending, let's say the USD wire, then there is a wire fee on top of these fees, right? But which is minuscule, not a whole lot. But if you are doing in a local currency wire transaction to the suppliers in Europe or China or anywhere, then you pay the FX, right? 1% of the transaction, and you see the conversion rate, obviously, at the time of making the transaction. So that's very transparent to the buyer that how much you have to pay upfront in order to pay this invoice in Europe, right? So you see the conversion rate upfront, you see the FX rate, you see the wire fee, which you could decide you want to charge or you don't want to charge. I mean, there is obviously some cost to originate that wire plus this card fee.
And since our pain point of specific customer is actually terms, if I get it right, in case of payment by credit card, you receive grace period by default, which is like 30,
Yeah,
40,
which is by
50
default.
days.
Which is by
That
default.
that's terms, right? I mean,
Yeah.
that's yeah, that's an option not to pay within few days. Uh, so I just don't get why they just don't use plastic or some substitution. I mean, it seems to be a solution. Maybe it's some limit since they buy 6 million, 10 million per year. So the question is, does this scheme allow you to pay uh, half a million per month, 1 million per month?
Oh
Uh,
yeah, we actually had even up to $1 million transaction, and then there are different sort of the funding methods. So for example, you look at Brex. So Brex really issue more of B2B segment, right? So the Brex does charge cards. You probably know, right? So there is these the traditional the cards from the banks, and
mhm.
generally, and actually some actually do carry limits up to 30, 40, 50,000 because these are business cards, and some actually are even the unlimited credit limits, right? So it really depends. Um, how big of a business you are, which bank you transact with, what your limits are. Same thing with Brex, for example. Brex has the charge cards model, right, or DV, or which is now acquired by Bill.com. But all these companies actually would issue you the charge cards, right, based on your financials, based on your history, based on the size of the business, and all of those things. And they can actually issue pretty substantial amount of credit with the terms that you pay back every 30 days, right? With no interest, every 30 days you pay back, um, and which is an auto withdrawal from your linked bank account, or even bi-weekly. So it really depends upon your terms, right? So whether it's bi-weekly or 30 days, and the limits change based on how long you want to sort of acquire this capital, right? And then it could be pretty substantial amount of the credit. Obviously, as long as you keep in good standing, you can keep paying your invoices, pay back every bi-weekly or monthly, and then business, and then it keeps going on. So yeah, I mean there are different different ways of doing it. At Plastic also we did, which was actually mostly in the US market. We didn't do cross-border, which is our integration with another B2B like yours, which is the B2B 60, 30, 90 days terms, right? Um, so that as a supplier, you can actually pay 30, 60, 90 days term, and then pay back with a credit card or bank account or whatever happens to be the case. Alex, I did actually notified, I don't know if it got back to you guys or not, that actually I have a conflict today that I need to jump to another meeting. So I don't know if Shweta actually indicated to you or not, but I mentioned that I have a 30 minutes today, but would be happy to get on a call and then continue this conversation. And if you guys want, I could be a part of your team and advisory board or whatever, and then we can work together.
Absolutely. Thanks a lot for your time. We have to figure out and discuss what we
Yeah,
discussed today together and come back with to you with feedback and options. Thanks a lot.
yeah,
I mean, it was
totally.
really appreciated.
Sure.
We'll
Thank
be
you,
in touch.
Rajiv.
Yeah,
Thanks. Bye
Very
bye.
nice
bye
day.
bye.
А он сказал, типа, надо бежать, да? Я чё-то не
Да,
понял.
типа у него там нотификация, ТРПР свалил. Но я думаю, что не спиздил.
Не, он
Вот.
заранее предупреждал, что у него 30 минут всего.
Ну и тем более там вежливо предложил и как-то в другое время продолжить и так далее. Короче, он готов общаться. Нормальный чел. Знаешь, что, блин, что-то странно, что-то не докопали. А, Чел типа шарит за карты, короче, да? Чел карты, виза, интерчейндж, там, пластик и так далее. И, короче, тема такая. а, Вот ты платишь картой и получаешь свои 45 дней грысухи, да? А там чел получает бабки сразу, а ты за это платишь 3% типа. Но при этом тебе эти 3% кэшбэка вернутся, еще тебе там насыпят бонусов, мили и прочего говна. А в другие страны то же самое. И грейсуха та же, и кэшбэки те же, там, и комиссии те же. Блять, а чё аж и лимитов нету? 500, миллион,
Принимать, не,
пожалуйста.
принимать поставщики же не хотят
Так
карты.
пластик конвертит
Что значит
в,
конверт?
ну, конвертит другие payment методы, это их бизнес.
Не понял. Смотри, поставщик не хочет эквайринг ставить, принимать эти платежи, потому что пластик дает владельцу карты всякие кэшбэки, ништяки, кому платится, он же ничего не дает.
Пластик, в смысле контора пластик, она занимается, я так понял, тем, что конвертит payment. Ты типа ну, бизнес пластика, я так, или как Мелио, то же самое. В чем? Пейменты, да? Ты типа а, покупатель платит картой, тот человек получает этот,
Так.
бабки на счет. Либо я что-то не догнал, либо я не понимаю, почему Ашфак и конторы тупо не платят пластиковой картой через какой-то сервис типа Пластик или Brex тоже они там сделали.
Наверное, ограниченный лимит. Ну, карту одну дали, ну, дали тебе $10 000 и все.
Я спросил лимит. Я спросил лимит, говорю: "Братан, типа, я не понимаю, скажи, что там по лимитам?" Он говорит: "Да, типа, ну, я говорю: "Лям, на лям можно платить?" Он говорит: "Да, типа, до ляма спокойно".
Ну, как, пластик на $1 000 000?
Ну, типа, кредитная карта.
Ну,
Я так пон
странно очень.
ну, чё да.
Ты попробуй в банке такой кредит взять, а это пластик. Все-таки там ограниченные эти. Вон, Брекс отдельный продукт запустил, потому что бизнесу не дают кредиты. И они запустили карту кредитную. Я уверен, что там не лям. Лям, скорее всего, с большими оборотами, с ипрувом каким-то. Ну так лям-то на карту кто отвесит? Нифига себе, это 100 миллионов, прикинь.
Ну, тупо, да, лимиты должны быть, причем довольно
Да,
большие лимиты, обеспеченные чем-то, наверное, еще что то. Ну,
да.
типа, он так поторопился или там просто общее сказал, типа: "Бывает, бывает".
Не, ну, типа, бывает. Не, ну, если какой-то, типа, history, long history с большими оборотами, ну, типа, дадут. Но это не говорит о том, что это в среднем так, скорее всего.
Окей, значит, это просто мне показалось. Видишь, я не шарю, типа это, наверное, не какой-то универсальный что ты про брак знаешь?
Да не, ни хрена не знаю, мало знаю. Они типа выпускают карты для бизнеса. Это вот еще самая первоначальная идея. Стартапы не могут получать лимит, ну, как бы эти кредиты, они выпускали для них карты, чтобы они могли кэшиться с этих карт. Ну вот, какие там лимиты, ничего не знаю больше.
Ага, окей. Мне просто показалось, что, типа, если карту легко получить, там большие лимиты, как этот чел говорит, и тебе дают этот грейс, то вот же решение, типа, бля, бери карту, плати, получай 45 и не еби мозг европейским конторам. За 3%, которые они и так готовы платить там всяким, типа нас. Еще и кэшбэк отвесит. Значит, какая-то херота с лимитами точно есть, да?
Ну,
Не всем
похоже, ну,
дают.
как бы первая штука, кажется, да, но там, условно, сейчас на брейк зашел, а, тут какие-то большие вроде бы суммы фигурируют. Ну, не знаю, надо разбираться. Вообще ни хрена не знаю.
Я к тому, что,
Не-не, ну смотри, там точно проблема какая-то есть, если бы, ладно бы Ашфак не знал, а они же все с Credit Limits работают. Все компании с этими, европейские с этими, целая индустрия, целый alliance, целые миллиардные компании, которые страхуют эти Credit Limits. Знаешь, что тут
это вот уровень, ну, как бы мы внутри штатов чуть-чуть там подняли уровень, да. Сейчас на кросс-бордер, я прям чувствую, опустился, вообще ни хера не понимаю. Вот это страхование, insurance, foreign exchange, вот этот FX, то, что он тоже упоминал. Типа, опять же, Ашфак говорит, если поставщик даст там нет 30 мне на закуп, я вам с этого закупа там со 100 000 евро 3-4 отдам. Вопрос: какого хуя Ашфак не возьмет по 2% в месяц бабки у того же Диалеля, который ему дает, 2% в месяц бабки, не заплатит ACH или вот это International Wire европейцам, не обернет эти бабки, не вернет туда. Зачем там вот долбать кого-то? Вот, то есть это вопросы к Ашфаку, конечно. То есть вот где эти препятствия,
типа,
которые
ну, типа, бесплатно. А он говорил, типа, если мы не успеваем отдать кредит лимит, мы вот, вот это DHL или как, короче, этой херни
делал, да?
берем, да, DLL, берем деньги и отправляем уже супплайеру. Я думаю, просто чтобы не платить.
Ну, чтоб не платить, базара нет, при том, что он
Бесплатно, типа, кэш наоборот.
бесплатный кэш. А при этом, когда я спросил, типа: "А сколько вот за этот, э,
три
как оно
процента,
называется,
да.
иншуранс, да, типа вознаграждение страхователю 3%. то ли это пиздеж, что там на самом
Да,
деле
и плюс он же говорил, что мы предлагали даже им компенсировать. Но смотри, ну, короче, вот с DLL непонятно, почему он там не берет и не покупает у европейских поставщиков товара.
это прям надо копнуть. То есть есть гипотеза, что это вот искажение, что проблема есть.
Ну, знаешь, что непонятно? Типа, у нас типа один ашфак с проблемой, да, закупа в Европе.
Ну, типа, может, да, Ашфак, короче, вот так криво решает, потому что у них там какая-то хитрожопая пакистанская контора, которой ни хера никто не дает, и
То
поэтому
есть у
они
нас,
такие,
по сути, один ашфак, да,
да.
который закупает за границей.
Вот нам как будто бы, блин, смотри, типа, а, потенциальный клиент Ашфак, проблема у
Да,
него.
ну да.
Вопрос, это только у него такая проблема или еще 10
Ну,
есть
сейчас
разных
стал
чуваков,
вопрос, да. Сейчас
да,
видим это, да.
и сколько он и другие 10 готовы платить, если проблема есть. И кажется, что если мы сейчас пойдем к европейцам или еще к кому-то, то можем проиграть время.
Ну, мы уже проебываем, уже сколько, уже и так, да, 2 недели.
Вот,
Ну, согласен, да.
может, к селлерам сходим?
А, да, да, логично, можно к селлерам, похожим на шфака.
Или, ну да,
Ну,
проведем
мы
бизнес.
завтра, кстати, wholesaler будет, вот этот short,
Кайф.
блин, или как его там,
Поставщик,
короче,
да?
как-то. Да, да, поставщик.
Круто. Очень хорошо.
Вот, и Ашфак же завтра, да?
Ашфак, да.
Ну вот, да, мы там, может, что-то какую-то инфу копнем. Но в целом сейчас очевидно, типа, такие, блядь, это ж типа вот только одного шфака. О чем мы подумали, что у всех?
Ну, мы типа там, если к поставщикам, то мы сразу проверим там.
Не, это, ну да, логика была тоже.
Логика была. Окей. Ну вот, да, надо про клиентскому сегменту пойти, чтобы тут не ошибиться. Ладно, ладно. Что по
Селлер,
этому?
да? Типа
С-
Amazon селлер, да, какой-то там.
Да, крупные Amazon селлеры, э, надо, может, посмотреть.
Их, может быть, даже полегче будет найти, потому что холлселлеров, бля, я просто уколебался эти фильтрами, шмильтрами. Они там все разные, одежда, ну, короче, куча нерелевантного говна мы сейчас шлем. Но вот селлеров полегче даже будет найти, я думаю.
Да. Может, кстати, Паша, если они продают аналитику.
Паша, да,
Знаешь,
я зайду.
там, знаешь, еще может быть не то, что там он отсыпет клиентов, а может быть,
Да, он не
а,
отсыпет, я спрошу, но он особо не отсыпет, никогда не отсыпал. Чего я не просил, он нет, не рожал. Но я в любом случае
тут
попрошу.
экспертиза вот именно, у них аналитика Амазона, да, что такое, а нужно Amazon селлеры.
Да. Ну, это
Вот
их
мы,
покупатели.
да, мы, например, ашваковские конторы знаем. У нас их название, можно изъебнуться, зайти в Amazon, намайнить эти магазины, попробовать там связать, как-то посмотреть, что за сток, какой ассортимент, какие
Не,
бренды.
можно вообще в эти конторы пойти, тоже в том числе. Прям к ответственным пойти. Ну, это параллельно так можно закинуть.
Ну, там, скорее всего, просто диаспора пакистанцев и что-нибудь в этом роде. Типа
В этих
максимально такой.
конторах, продавцах, сапплайерах.
Вот этих 6.
Ну да. А почему пакистанцы? Они же в Европе.
Не продавцы. Да-да-да. Да-да-да. Короче, я к чему? Можно посмотреть профиль ашфаковских контор, что продают, что за товар, бренды, оборотку. И, грубо
Этих
говоря,
контор и его компаний. Ага, понял.
да, его вот этих вот покупателей, да, типа ашфаковских. И по образу подобию из Амазона возможно достать. И тут спросить надо у Паши, типа, а мы можем вообще намайнить, как вот на ВБ можно посмотреть, селлеров? любого сегмента с любым оборотом, в любых категориях. Ты
Где
просто
можно, да? Где можно?
хуяк, да, выгружаешь название, ИПшки, НННки, все выгружаешь, хуяк с сегментом сразу 10 тысяч компаний. Дальше их по названиям там ищешь, ловишь, пишешь и так далее. Вот так.
Да.
Вопрос, типа, а сервис аналитики, они позволяют ли так сделать, чтобы, типа, по примеру, Ашфака еще там 10 тысяч селлеров с похожим оборотом и категорией выгрузить, например, и брендами в портфеле? Вот такие задачи вообще системы аналитики, они могут решать? Есть такие данные или нет? Вот такой вопрос. Если есть, то там нахер LinkedIn условно, ну, нужен, но типа сначала сегмент формируем там из Амазона и идем. То есть они точно знают, они же продают в итоге этим селлерам.
Да.
Вот, ну, а Шфаку понятно, что спрашивать. Поэтому чуваку хер знает. Он эксперт в пластике, в пластиковых картах, в пластиковых пейментах.
Кстати, чувак со Стэнфорд закончил.
Ну, красавчик. Мы тоже, по-моему.
Ага.
Ладно.
Че, мужик, все, отдыхаем до завтра. Завтра, что, я особо уже ничего не запомнил. Короче, селлеры нужны.
Да.
Посмотреть, что у них, и пойти к Паше узнать. Ну окей, давай, добро, пробуем.
Я Amazon поковыряю, посмотрю, что там можно достать по Ашфаку и там по аналогам. Давай.
Давай, мужик, счастливо, пока.
Ты зальешь этот видос? Я хочу переслушать. Там были
Да,
мысли.
да, сейчас закину. Минут через 5-10 уже будет. Давай,
Давай,
счастливо,
спасибо.
пока. Пока.